Welcome. Oh, we're here. We made it. We are live. Transaction Care, the podcast. Very first ever live recording. Whether you are watching this now or in the future on the replay, thank you again. I appreciate you. My guest, as you see, is already here. But before we get into her intro, if you have any questions, hit the chat. We'll answer them. And let me run through her bio and we'll get started. So, Allyson Kurak is the owner of a full service transaction coordination and a TC coaching company. She got her real estate license and now with her experience on agent assistant and TC, I'm passionate about providing exceptional other coordinators like I'll see you guys in Dallas. Awesome. Thank you for joining me.
Hi. Can you hear me all right, Lily? Lily, can you hear me? Perfect. Hi, everyone. Sorry, I think I had an issue with my audio, but I'm back if you can hear me.
So this is live. As you see,
Okay. I'm getting just a little bit of background noise on the audio, but we can try to push through.
we'll work with it.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay. Thank you for the intro.
Are you back? This is the reality of being things live. The audio was
It's our first one, so.
Are you there, Allyson?
We even get live tech support.
This is good.
I think we're almost there.
Thank you all for your patience. I'm not quite sure what's happening. All right, how about now?
That's a little better on my end.
So, talk to us about your history with real estate in terms of how you got started, what brought you into the world of transaction coordination? Has real estate and business been a dream of yours, or did this just align with your life at the right time?
Yeah, so I've had a pretty organic journey from starting in real estate to becoming a transaction coordinator. But I actually got started in real estate right after I graduated from college. So I got licensed in 2018. I actually had a job in insurance, and I did it for, this is like a running joke with my husband and I, like either like 6 or 8 weeks, and then I quit. So it was not for me. And during that time, my actual now mother-in-law, she was an agent at a brokerage, and she really encouraged me that if I was looking for something else, that she thought I would be great, and kind of connect me with them. And so I spent the rest of the summer after college studying for my exam, and I took and passed the exam in August. And so it was pretty natural for me. I had a degree in marketing, so I always knew I would do something sales related, I think. I just didn't really know what kind. Obviously, at first I thought it was going to be insurance, which it wasn't. So I kind of just became an agent really close out of college. So I've been in the world ever since. I feel like it's hard to get out once you're in.
Yeah, no, I definitely have spoken to a lot of people. It's like you're a lifer.
Yes. Or they bounce around like lender, title, agent, coordinator, but it's always like within the same world, I feel like.
Exactly. So, you're in college and you're in this new world of business. Did it always Did you always envision it to be your own business, or did you think, let me work my way up, or how did you get to switch to real estate?
Yeah. So did you, just to clarify, so talking about like how I became like the transaction coordinator, or?
In terms of like, I wanted. So,
Sorry, I am having audio trouble again.
ready?
I wonder if we could, I don't know if it'll still be live if we try, like, just try again.
Um, if I leave it, I think it ends the session, but we could just start a whole new one.
Okay, you're a little clearer to me right now if it's going in and out. I know we've got like a couple people on here. If you'll be patient with us. I don't know if there's another solution, but I just want to make sure I'm hearing and answering your question.
Yeah, I'm wondering if it's like the corner I'm in, maybe the spaces. Are you still in and out?
A little bit. Like right there, you just came through clearly, but there's like a lot of background. I don't know if there's something on my end. I'm not sure how it's hearing to you.
It's a lot better. When we first started, it was a lot of me. I could only hear myself. But I turned off all of my other things. Not quite sure. Is it the sound or is it also delayed?
It seems pretty on to me, but there's like almost like a white noise kind of coming through a lot.
Yeah, I still feel it. I don't know where that's coming from. But when I'm speaking, is it on time? Is it very
good? It doesn't seem delayed to me.
I'm trying to see if I don't have any in here. Other than I think it's my laptop. I'm gonna check this out. Turning off my laptop. Alright, so I think we're okay. Because it might be something with the feedback. White noise. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. There's some feedback. Like I said, we can definitely keep trying to keep going. I might just have to ask you to repeat the question.
All right. Let's start from the top.
Yeah.
So Allyson, thank you again for joining us. Let's just start with the beginning of your journey. How you got into real estate.
Yeah. Absolutely. So I had a pretty, since getting into real estate to getting where I am today, I had a pretty organic journey. But getting into real estate, I actually got into it right after college, which I feel like isn't super common. But I had a job. Like, I remember I got it in October of senior year of college, which is like exciting because then you have your job lined up so you can just relax the rest of the year. And like I was so excited about this job, and it's like a joke between my husband and I because I say I lasted 8 weeks, he says I lasted like 6 weeks. But regardless, I didn't last very long in that like corporate sales type of environment. But because my degree was in marketing, I always knew I was probably going to end up doing some type of sales. Just since I feel like nowadays, like that traditional like marketing firm isn't as common to go like work at a big agency. I know there are some, but I always just saw marketing as like sales because you couldn't get like a sales degree. But when I started realizing that I really was not passionate at all about working in insurance, I had lunch with my now mother in law, who is a real estate agent. And she thought I would be really great at it. And so she wanted to connect me with her broker. And so I met up with them and I kind of just decided to start taking that journey on. So I spent the whole summer right after graduating college studying for my exam. And then I took and passed the exam in August 2018. So that's when I officially became a licensed agent.
I love that. So in terms of real estate, was there any outside influence? Friends, I think you'd be brilliant in real estate, or marketing background is kind of an easy
Yeah.
for.
So I think the question was like if I had any other influences, or could you try repeating it one more time?
Did real estate run in your family, or did you have friends that kind of that pathway?
So besides my mother-in-law, who was just my boyfriend's mom at the time, no. So no realtors in my family. I feel like I didn't even really know anyone. All my friends were like graduated from college too. No people I knew my own age were being realtors. So it was really just my mother-in-law who influenced me, which I'm thankful for because it's been a great opportunity since then. But yeah, definitely no like family history or anything. I don't think I could have even like named a realtor besides her at that time.
Right. So what led you to transaction coordination? Like why that particular aspect of real estate?
Yeah, so like I said, I feel like I had a really organic journey going from real estate agent to transaction coordinator. I remember so vividly when I was at my first brokerage, I would get like complimented, like I had the best dot loop files. And I was like, this is the easiest part of the whole thing. Like, what are y'all talking about? Like, I didn't understand that for other agents, like that was not their strong suits. And then they would ask me to help them with like their Excel sheets and like things like that. So there was starting to be like inklings of maybe being more organized or having higher like organizational skills, whereas other agents had skills in other areas. Like I hated negotiating. Like I would have like anxiety attacks about like having to negotiate repairs and stuff for people. Like, and I saw other people crushing that and loving it. So I kind of started to realize there's a couple different sides to this business. And maybe you can excel more than one, more in one than the other. And essentially, I actually listened to a podcast, and there was a successful realtor on there who had said she started out actually as an assistant to kind of learn the business and all this. And I was like, wow, that's like a really good idea. Because also remember, I just graduated from college, so I didn't have savings or a spouse or things to fall back on. So, grinding for those first couple transactions, like it was really stressful. So, kind of, I got this idea in my head. I could maybe learn more about the business and get a steady paycheck. About a year into being an agent, that became really appealing to me. And what was I going to say? Basically, I that became appealing to me, and so I kind of started researching like what that would look like, and I ended up getting a job as a. I think when I applied for the job, it was as an executive assistant to a high producing real estate agent. And eventually, into doing that job for a little while, I kind of transitioned my role. We realized I was less of an executive assistant and more of we changed my title to licensed marketing and transaction coordinator. And so you'll kind of see how this goes from agent to assistant to coordinate licensed marketing and transaction coordinator. And then eventually I realized I wanted to drop the marketing part, right? And so what I was going to say was like, that as the marketing and transaction coordinator, I was still doing all the TC work. And so I kind of started realizing like how much I really liked that part of it. And as time went on of doing that also for like about a year or so, I was like, you know what? I feel like I've learned a lot, which was huge because when I was a fresh agent, which I know you have your license, like what they teach you to take the class does not apply at all to real life and what you're actually doing. And so I was fortunate to have my mother-in-law as a mentor for me. But I started feeling guilty, like calling her every day and stuff. So that was kind of another part that made me be like, okay, can I learn more in like an assistant type role while also earning a paycheck, which was another thing that drew me to that. And so after being in that marketing and coordinator role for a year, I kind of was like, you know what, I've learned a lot. Like I had gotten to learn the listing side. I never even did a listing when I was actually an agent. I was like, I've learned a lot, but like I'm sick of doing the marketing. And other TCs I talk to, like we always laugh about that because they'll be like, I made this flyer and they asked me to change the color 25 times. And it's like, I totally get how that can be like, I was like, I'm over this part. Like, I just want to work on my transactions. Like, that was my favorite part of the day. And so I kind of started looking at avenues of how I could drop the marketing part and become just a transaction coordinator. And so during COVID, I actually found a company that had a bunch of coordinators. And so I started working for them as an independent contractor. So I feel like I took a lot of like baby steps towards doing all these things until I eventually went on my own and started Stitched Real Estate. So I worked for them for about 3 years. And then I was like ready to go off completely on my own. And so that's when I started to start Stitched Real Estate. So it was a pretty organic journey of like realizing my strengths in the industry, realizing that there are other opportunities like for stuff kind of on the back end, and then kind of finding my way to where I am now.
Yeah, no, I love that. And I think it's important to share because a lot of people coming is or know like steps you have to take to get to switch to real estate? Like, you realize, okay, well, let me try a bunch of things and see what works for me and what doesn't work for me. And then you finally start to uncover where you fit within this industry. And I think that's amazing. I want to touch back a little bit on the mentor part of it. So, fortunately, you were able to have access to a mentor, whether she knew that was her title or not.
Right? I will see if she watches.
Aligning yourself with people that are already doing it to some capacity, right? And how would you say that accelerated your pathway in this industry versus would you have gotten as far without a mentor, do you think you still have that mindset to do it on your own?
Yeah, so I think it definitely helped. I don't know about like accelerating to end up getting to like where I am today, because once I kind of became the assistant and then further transaction coordinator role, I was working for a top producing agent, so they weren't able to teach me like they taught me a ton, but not like the ins and outs of like transaction coordinating specifically. But I think having a mentor as a new real estate agent is so important, or as a coordinator too. Like any type of new role in an industry where you don't get formal training like you do in a corporate office, having someone who's been there before, who can just, you can vent to, who can inspire you, who can do all that. But she definitely taught me so much about doing a transaction and about different parts of real estate, like all the questions I had. I probably would have either taken a lot longer to find out the answers to my questions, or I would have made a lot more mistakes along the way. So I definitely think having her as my mentor as a baby real estate agent was super helpful in probably overall did speed up my growth.
Thank you for sharing that because I think it definitely helps to know people in the industry. And for those that don't know anyone in the industry, just reach out, ask questions, whether it's a one-off question or you end up finding guidance, whether it's a mentor, a coach, a therapist, psychiatrist, I don't know, but find a way to.
Someone. Yeah, especially for us, we work from home and like alone and stuff. And so if you're trying to just start out and you don't feel like you have anyone, definitely reach out because there are people there for you.
Right, exactly. So, what is the drive behind Switch Real Estate? So now, you dabbled in the realtor aspect of things, you dabbled a little bit in the assistant, now you're a TC. What was the turning point or the pivot when you're like, okay, I have some experience, I can do this on my own. But what was that moment where you're like, now or never?
Yes. So, like I said, I've been working at a company as a transaction coordinator, and there had been some changes there that kind of helped inspire me that maybe I was ready to go on my own. But also, it was really came from at its core, like caring about the customer and wanting to be in control. So, being completely in control of the customer's experience from start to finish, right? And when I say customer, I'm referring to the real estate agents, but then, also the buyer and sellers, but mainly the real estate agents. Being in control of what was being communicated to them, the exact services I was able to provide, the pricing, all that kind of stuff became more and more important to me. And then one of my goals has also been to expand my team of coordinators. And I didn't want anyone else to ever own my team. Like maybe they own some of the files or own some of the clients or have some control. But when I thought about hiring and expanding, I was like, this really needs to be my own thing. So it was kind of twofold of growth opportunity. I felt like I needed to go off on my own, and then also really wanting to make the customer experience individualized to me, because I like what you said. You're like, I've learned a little bit, I've got some experience, I've learned what works, what doesn't, what do the customers want, and being able to customize that was important to me. So those are probably the two main reasons.
Nice, yeah, and ownership is important, especially if you have that in you, entrepreneurial spirit that lives in you. Sometimes it just takes that little bit of a push or a little bit of knowledge and education to be like, oh, I can do this. I have the confidence. It was always there. I just needed a little bit of some training wheels, and now they're off.
And it's still scary. I was still terrified. And then after I did it, I was like, why didn't I do this 2 years ago?
Doesn't that always happen? I just went through that myself, like launching this. It doesn't go away, people. Like the imposter syndrome, the self-doubt, but you build your endurance, you increase your reps, so the time between idea, self-sabotage, and action, it decreases, and you faster and quicker and better. When did you try in entrepreneurship world? Like, when did you feel like, okay, I'm starting to get the hang of this now from my own office, from me. I'm the boss.
When I felt like I was the boss, I'm trying to think on that one, but I can tell you the first time I was like, whoa, I've made it, was when I made more money in 1 week than I used to make in a month at my salary job. And I remember like I was just getting so busy and I was like so in the weeds of it. I was like not seeing what was in front of me. And, you know, in real estate, you get really busy like 30, 45 days before you see the money come in. And I remember the first week, I like kind of do like weekly accounting. I like saw the numbers and I was like, whoa. So that was kind of the first moment for me that I was like, I've made it. And especially like doing something off by myself and like seeing that, you know, being an entrepreneur and being a freelancer can be so much more fruitful than just a traditional office job. Because I think sometimes it can be disheartening if you have a week you don't make any money or you have a bad month or something, but then you have those moments where you're like, okay, I can really make this happen. And that was the first time I'd really gotten busy and the first time I made that much money. And that was like a wow moment for me, for sure.
So at this point, are you still working alone, or are you already building a team? You're solo.
At this point, I'm completely solo, but it is my goal to build my team like within the next few months, 6 months. Like that's definitely like my next goal I have, because I love mentoring too. And so I remember I used to mentor at my old company, and I would hang up the mentor session. I'd be like, if I could just mentor all day, that'd be awesome. So I'd love to be able to have that aspect of it. And I also meet so many people who don't really know what to start or don't want to start their own thing with zero support. So kind of having that opportunity to mentor people and bring them under my wing, that's definitely like my next goal. Also, if my mom is watching this though, she does help me with my QuickBooks. So I guess I'm not totally alone. Sorry. Yeah.
Oh, okay, awesome. So, speaking of that, speaking of like productivity, um, what were some of the productivity like hacks or systems you had in place to get you to that point where you're like, I'm making more, I'm making more in a week than I did in a month or whatever the case may be, right? So what was, systems get refined and whatnot, but in the beginning, like, what do you think catapulted that way of doing things?
Yeah, I think that's my mom. She said thank you. I'm glad I'm not going to get a mean phone call after this. But yeah, it was a huge learning curve for me. And that's one of the reasons I'm so passionate about making my YouTube videos and stuff, because I kind of went not 0 to 100. I was doing transactions for probably like 6, 7, 8 months in COVID times. And I had some clients, but not a ton. And then I started kind of getting some more clients from my marketing. And then I got a huge opportunity to work with a new team at a brokerage. And it was like 25 or 30 agents. And so that was like 0 to 100 for me. So I really had to learn on my feet. And that's why I'm passionate about sharing tips like this. And I would say the number one thing, if you are a fellow transaction coordinator, is finding a system that works for you, right? So I'm big on time blocking, and I'm really big on finding the best way to work for yourself. So for example, I like filtering like by the kind of task, and I like be able to mark something as like red for high priority or stuff like this, because when you and like someone commented on my videos the other day, it's like, I think working per file is better, which like I respect opinions, but like if you have 100 files, like you can't touch every file every day. So you have to learn how to prioritize. And I think that's something you kind of learn over time. But a huge part of that is also having the right systems in place so you can prioritize correctly. High priority items, medium priority, low priority. Because also, like, I've had days I've had 150 tasks to do. I'm not going to finish all of them. So you have to figure out what would be okay to be moved to the next day. And making sure you have a system that like clearly lets you see what you need to work on, clearly lets you filter it out. Um, that's the number one, just like overall tip, is making sure you have systems in place that support you. So even if you're brand new, do your research, find a system that you can learn and grow with. Because I had a good system, but I hadn't had it set it up properly and I didn't know how to do it properly. So it took me a lot longer to get in a good groove. So that's my number one thing, is like, especially the transaction management system, something that works the way you work and is scalable.
Right. And that's so important. That was my number one failure. I went years without a transaction management platform.
Wow.
I've been doing real estate since 2006.
Wow.
Mentor, transaction management. But I want to talk a little bit more about time management, right? Having systems are important, but also knowing that when you are running a business, have the 9 to 5 hours. Are you technically working just the 9 to 5 hours, or are you, or are you not? And it's okay. Some days are longer than others, but I kind of want to, point out like that misconception of work from home anytime you want. I do 9 to 12, and then I'm done. I mean, some days maybe, not all the time. So, how did you find your structure, if you have one, in terms of just like the hours you work, and making sure you're still staying sane, and having time for family, friends, you know what I mean? Your favorite TV show, concert, you know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think time management is super important. I do work 9 to 5. I actually stick pretty close to that schedule, but I will say I kind of see it twofold. So when I was super, super transaction heavy, like I've kind of been talking about, I worked basically 9 to 5, but I will say the busiest months of my life, which were super hot months in the market and just for me personally, I probably started working at like 7:30 a.m. I would still finish around 5:30, but then I would always go back to my computer for an hour or two, like 8 to 9, 8 to 10, 9 to 10, something like that. So it was probably more like 11, 12-hour days, but I'm very financially motivated. And what I like about this role is the more you do, the more you make. So I was like, okay, I'm working really hard, but it's going to pay off pretty quickly and I'm going to get a direct financial reward. But since taking over and totally doing my own business, I do less transactions now, because I have to focus more on administrative and marketing. And like I said, hopefully growing a team and things like that. So it is easier for me. But in general, I've always been able to stick relatively to the 9 to 5. And I think it's really just about prioritizing, not getting distracted, time blocking, and, pre planning like how you're going to use your time. And I think the main thing is prioritizing, right? Like if I, at the end of the day, don't get to editing my new YouTube video, if I feel like, that night I want to do it, sure. But if not, I can do that the next day or something. So, but yeah, I pretty much stick to 9 to 5 and try to get everything done. I do love talking about that misconception, like you mentioned, because some days I am done working at 11 or 12, but I also preach to the clients that I'm available between 9 and 5. So I may be done with what's on my list at 11 a.m. or 12, but someone could call me or send in a new offer or need help on something anytime the rest of the day. So I think it's important to have realistic expectations. Like, yes, you could finish your work, but you're going to have access to your phone and computer during those business hours. So I also feel like my husband works a more traditional schedule, and so if he's sitting there working at the computer, I'm like, am I going to go sit on the couch? Like, no. So that helps me too, kind of with like sticking the mindset. And okay, maybe I finished my transaction work or my goals for the day, but like, what else can I work on? But if you're super busy, I think being prepared, you might have to put extra time in. But with time blocking and really prioritizing, you can stick to more of a traditional schedule. So.
Yeah, and it's like that proximity to productivity. It's like, okay, well, I mean, it's okay to also go sit on the couch.
Yes, I think I also have like toxic productivity mindset because I'm like, if I take a break, I'm like, what else could I be doing? But as a business owner, like, there's just so much you could be doing at any time, right? But I also feel like my brain like fogs out at some point, and I'm like, okay, I'm not going to be as productive or do as good of work right now. So like, I do need to take a break, or I do need to be done for the day. So I think listening to yourself too in that aspect, so you don't get overworked, is also important.
It really is, because it's so quick to get burnt out. I burnt out my first year. Probably I've been proactive with like implementing work busy, mental health busy, right? And lately, I've been doing this thing like, I feel my body getting tired. I don't know if these are the real thing, but I call it, let me just start it.
Okay.
What did I just do? And what am I going to do next? So I think that's amazing. You mentioned mentoring, and you also offer coaching as well, right?
Yes.
So,
Yeah, so I think, do you just want me to elaborate a little bit more on some of that?
yeah, just elaborate on. Oh, well, here. Do you also work with a coach, or do you just offer coaching as a service? And is it just the transaction coordinators? What brought you to that?
Yeah. So I personally don't have a coach. If you know someone, maybe you can tell me. But I just, like I said, I used to love mentoring at the old company I worked with. And so I was like, how can I take that into my new company? And so that's kind of where I came up with the idea for the coaching. And I also have so many people, and I'm sure you notice this in your community too. They comment like, how can I get started? What do I do? Where's the training? And like, it's really not there, right? And so just being able to help people who have those questions, that's kind of what inspired me. I was like, all these people are asking me. I do have the knowledge to share with them. So, like, what kind of platform can I make to be able to help people? So, in the past, I've done like one-on-one coaching. Just the most recent one I did was just you could schedule a single session. I got a lot of people who just had questions like, "Is this for me? Can I do this?" etc. But then I'm planning on doing some more in the future that's more structured, or some more courses. So it's just something that, like I said, I had a mentor in real estate, but I didn't necessarily have a transaction coordinator mentor. So, like, if someone had been there for me, I probably could have grown even faster and all that. So, being able to take my experience and help other people, I'm really passionate about it, especially because I hate more than anything when people are like, transaction coordinators don't do anything, or they don't know what they're doing. And so to me, it's like, no, I know the value, and I've worked with really high producing teams, and they know my value. And I'm like, no, a good transaction coordinator will change or save your business. So it's about helping people getting started, but it's also about educating people to be the best transaction coordinators we can be, so we can make a good name for our industry and continue to improve that name. So that's a big part of it too.
I completely agree. There's also that, oh, they're just your assistant. Just do everything. As a QC, especially someone running your own business, or even if you're not running your own business, it's important to set that precedence early. Your expectations, your boundaries. What do they expect out of you? Get that clarity. Find yourself up there clean. You have to offer a transaction. They kick you past home, but they have you signs in front of their house and picking up their very quickly if you don't kind of get a grip on things, or if you don't align yourself or reach out to coaches or mentors or whatnot. And I feel you. I'm kind of in the same boat. Like, so many people want to get in this industry, but they just don't have the right guidance. So both of us are available to help. It's important to just. I'd rather you have the right information than trying to figure this out on your own. And if you could start further than we started, just reach out. So speaking of helping people, I watch YouTube. We're both on YouTube, obviously, and this is our first time live. Bear with our technical difficulties. Our sound. This is the first time I'm ever doing anything like this.
I don't think I've even ever done a live ever. So I was like, here we go. My first podcast and my first live all in one. So
perfect before we went live, and then we went live, and everything fell apart. So that is life. You just have to pivot through it and adjust and be agile. And we are here. We are here. So speaking of social media, you have, from my perspective, you have a great social media presence. I like your content. It's direct. It's to the point. What confidence to do that? Because I know some people struggle with getting in front of the camera. This is your first and not it's one thing to get on a camera and pre-record it, but then to do it live is different. But now you've kind of built this momentum and this audience. Yeah, what sparked that other than to help people? Like, how did you come to terms with like I'm gonna be on camera now?
yeah, so I feel like that's a loaded question. I mean, I would say in general, I've always been a pretty confident person. So I mean, that doesn't mean you can't learn confidence and you can't learn to be on camera, but I also don't want to like be unrealistic about it. But I will say I also really try to view it as my business, right? So like I have friends and family who follow my page and who are maybe watching this video or going to watch later. But I don't think I primarily follow and interact with other industry people. So, real estate agents, other coordinators, other people in the industry, titles, stuff like that. And so I view it as promoting my business. I think some people, and I have this thought sometimes, is like cringy, like, do I look like I'm trying to like be an influencer or something? But it's like, that's why I always keep it really business related and really professional. So I think viewing it that way too, like this is my separate business page or my business YouTube channel. I'm not just trying to like be an influencer on my main page or something. So I also think with video, like there's a lot of ways you can do video without showing your face. You can do overlays, you could do a tutorial, you can do examples. So I would encourage people to start there if they aren't totally comfortable just being on camera. Also practicing on like an Instagram story that goes away really quickly, but just practicing talking to the camera. It'll just start to come more naturally to you. So those are probably my like initial tips, but then also just knowing you're providing valuable content. I think that's a huge thing. I think when people post something they aren't sure about because they felt like they just had to throw something up there because that's what you're supposed to do, you're going to feel less confident about what you're putting out there. So if like maybe it's not the best quality video or it's your first video, like you have to start with one and you have to be confident in your content. Even if you're not confident in your smile on the camera, be confident in your content and your message. And if you're providing value, people will connect with that.
I completely agree. Just providing value, and that you can do that without having to. You even use. What are your thoughts on AI in general, but two as a transaction coordinator?
Yeah, so personally, I haven't really used it that much. I know with one of the agents I was working with, they were using this thing called Jasper. Is that one of them? And he was using it to help write like listing descriptions and stuff, which he let me in there a couple times. I messed with it. First of all, it had every fair housing violation in the world. So like, please do not just copy and paste what AI writes for you. But if you need inspiration, I think that was kind of a cool tool. And I could see that maybe for marketing and stuff. I've actually thought, I listened to one of your other episodes where you asked someone about this. And I thought, maybe I could use it just to help with some automation or something since I am doing so much myself. But it's important to me to write the majority of my content just because it's coming directly from my experience. But I think in real estate, like, I don't know if this is where the question was going, but with it maybe you're taking over like a job for a transaction coordinator or something, I find that would have to be a really long way off. I think there's a lot of technologies that have tried to do it in the past, but there's so much of if this, then that. And then if that, then this, or this, or this, or this could go wrong, or they could want to do this or this. There's so many little tiny intricacies that I'm sure AI is really smart and they could figure it out. But there's so many moving pieces and it's not so crystal clear every time. And then, but the bigger and more important part of it is the human emotion. So this is the biggest, most 98% of the time, the biggest and most emotional transaction of people's lives, financially, time wise. I mean, people move for a lot of reasons. Some of them are happy, some of them are sad. Regardless, it's stressful, and they need someone that they can call and talk to. Even if, sometimes as transaction coordinator, we're just there to let someone vent to us, whether it's agent, buyer, seller, whatever. Sometimes we're a therapist too. So there's such a human aspect to real estate because it is such a big and typically emotional transaction that it'd be really hard to completely take people out of it, I think.
Yeah, I agree. I definitely use it for just time management. Because sometimes I don't feel like writing 10 pages of notes. And I'm just like, give me some coffee points, for my videos or whatnot. And I agree. I don't think it's going to take over the role of a TC. I recently saw an article from a couple people to replace TCs. There's too many nuanced elements. No, same. Like I'm a new transaction every time I. So
yeah, it's interesting for sure. But please don't copy and paste whatever writes for you.
Always add your own sauce. Read it.
Yeah.
For your own. If not, just make sure you have good insurance.
Right.
Bad clients, bad realtors, bad customers, right? And that definition can be subjective. Everyone's definition of bad could mean irresponsible, negligent, rude, mean, all of that. Have you encountered any, without naming names, have you encountered any uncomfortable, bad, or situations in your business?
So luckily not too much. And I think a big thing goes back to kind of something you touched on earlier, which is setting boundaries and being firm up front. When you establish yourself as a professional, as a business owner with your experience, this is what I need from you, this is what I'm going to do, it definitely helps rein people in. And if someone ever had a bad conversation with you, making sure you're readdressing that, which I know can be difficult. I haven't really had to do that as much. To me, like the best bad client is someone who's so unorganized that like I can barely help them. Because we're always supposed to turn like the chaos into like coordinated. That might be someone's slogan I saw. I don't know. It's great. But sometimes people are just so all over the place with their stuff that it makes it almost impossible to help them. So that's kind of my only experience in maybe like a bad client is someone who is just like not informing me of stuff, not keeping me in the loop, not updating me, doesn't have any other ducks in a row like at all. It's just someone who's super unorganized and all over the place. Like most real estate agents like are not as organized as a coordinator would want them to be. Obviously, that's like why we're in a different role than them. But to me, it's really just someone who is just so all over the place. I feel like I can barely piece them together and get them on the phone to help them. So I think that's a big thing is making sure someone communicates with you and has somewhat their ducks in a row. That's kind of be harder things for you to control. But fortunately, that's really the only kind of like bad experiences I've had. So I feel pretty good about that.
Yeah, it definitely always goes back to just setting it clear in the beginning and reiterating that when you start to feel like things are getting a little too loose or out of control or disorganized and And also just recognizing when to fire someone.
Yes, that's what I was going to say too. Mm-hmm. Can you repeat? Did you ask me a question?
So I was asking, have you had to unfortunately fire anyone in your journey so far, or?
I've actually never fired someone, but I've when I transitioned some of my roles, I was let go of some other people, so that was kind of a cleansing part for me. But I've never actually had to have a fired conversation with someone. But I will say, like, I use a customer agreement, and so if it's time to renew the customer agreement, you could just tell them we're not moving forward to send you another one or something. So I think there's some ways you can set yourself up for it not to be like you're fired, like scary. But I think it is important that if someone is draining so much of your energy or taking up so much more time to the value of what you're giving your other customers or affecting what you're able to give your other customers, then you may want to reevaluate. Can I have a conversation with them and redirect it first? But then it may escalate eventually, I guess, to having to let them go as a client. But I think it's important to not be afraid of. I had a client when I was a real estate agent that I should have fired. But I was so new and, like we said, holding on to every paycheck, and it was going to be a big paycheck for me. And so I just went through so much, emotionally, so much stress, barely worked on anything else working with someone. And it's like, was it really worth it? I don't know. So I think once you get more established or you have more steady income, it makes it easier. But I know it's extra hard when you're trying to hold on to every client and every deal. So
Yeah, I could definitely relate to that. Just holding on a little too long, but it's also good to have as experience and reference.
totally.
At all. So as we wrap up this conversation, I just want to say thank you, and of course, if there's anything else you want to touch on or talk about, go. But we talked about expansion. So is that a goal of yours you want to accomplish in the? How do you envision the business?
Yeah, for sure. So that's one of my next goals. I'd love to start accomplishing it at least before the end of 2023. I want to have some more coordinators on my team so that I can, take some more of the workload off, be able to help other people get started, be able to help more agents, and then also be able to have that mentoring aspect of it. So to me, that just looks like finding the right people and getting the systems in place to be ready to expand. So that is something I'm working on now.
And are you currently just servicing the Dallas area or all of Texas? Tell people where you currently offer your services.
Yeah, absolutely. So I personally reside in Dallas, Texas, but I work with agents all over the state of Texas. That will be the first step with my team, but maybe eventually we will expand to other states. But we work in all the big metropolitan areas: Houston, San Antonio, Austin, Fort Worth, Dallas, but also all over the state. So anyone in Texas, that's where I'm from. That's where I have my license, and I've closed almost 1,000 transactions here. So I just feel like I have a good niche for myself. So we can definitely help anyone in the state.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So as we wrap things up, and I ask this final question, again, thank you for bearing with us. Thank you for doing this.
Yes, thank you.
We made it. Technical difficulties, sound issues. Care for yourself.
Yeah. So something big for me is exercise. And to me, it's really important doing it in the morning because I feel like my brain just hits at 5 o'clock. I just want to be done. And so then to drag yourself to work out or whatever. So that's my number one thing is my morning routine and most importantly, my exercise. And because I feel like it has so many mental benefits and just it sets me up in a clear mind. Someone asked me one time, what do you do for yourself, in the morning or to get ready for the day? Because real estate is crazy. And I said, I exercise. So I feel accomplished. And I also feel like when something bad happens or negative happens throughout the day, I can then roll with the punches easier. I don't know. When my mind is in a clearer space, that's a huge thing for me. Also, I really love reading. I feel like that's kind of an escape where sometimes I'm scrolling on my phone, like Instagram, and I'm friends with these realtors. So then I'm like, oh, this just went under contract. Guess I'll see that tomorrow morning, you know, or something. So being on social media, I feel like sometimes it reminds me of work. So trying to set boundaries with my social media. My sister-in-law and I were actually laughing because we both have that like timer like thing to make it stop, and we're like, we always just hit ignore. But you know, I'm trying. So you know, limiting the social media and then trying to find things that aren't screen related or that can remind me of work. Exercise is huge for me. And then anytime I can, I love getting outside. When I've been really overwhelmed before, I've like put my phone inside on a timer and like sat on the patio just like in the sun and for like 10 minutes where like I couldn't look at my phone, I couldn't do anything, I just sat there and like breathed. Or going on a quick walk. I feel like sometimes it reminds me, oh, there's a whole other world of people out here, and like whatever's happening on my computer is not like the end all be all of the world. So exercising, getting outside, spending time with family and friends and off the screen, those are like the three biggest things for me that help me feel balanced.
I love that. Thank you for sharing that. So again, thank you for being on here. Please tell everyone how they could follow you, work with you, everything, websites, social media, YouTube, all of it. Go for it.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm assuming, like I said, it's our first live, so maybe I don't know, but I'm assuming you can see my YouTube handle on here. But subscribe to my YouTube channel. I post a lot of content. I also post a lot of updates there for things I do have coming up. Our website is stitchedre.com, at Stitched Real Estate on Instagram, Stitched Real Estate on Facebook. So if you want to connect with us, I would recommend heading to the website. We have a contact form and all our contact information. So if you're interested in services or coaching or courses, which is something I'm working on and hoping to have for everyone, or if you're a coordinator watching this who may be wanting to join a team soon, feel free to reach out to me on that too, as I'm working on that. But I hope you guys will follow along.
Yes, please follow Allyson. All of her information will be in the description of this video. The audio for this will be posted in the next couple of weeks. So for that, you can listen to past episodes at transactioncareerpodcast.com. New episodes are every Monday. I do interviews, solo episodes, demystifying the business of real estate, as well as just having fun conversations with people within the industry that I wouldn't ever get to meet in person if I didn't make the connection. So thank you again, Allyson. And if you want to get in touch with me, Lillian Hernandez, aka Lily like Flower, because we are learning and growing together, just go to mytccommunity.com. It's a brand new inspiring TCs, entrepreneurs as well, like-minded people, just to get started and get going. And again, if you want to reach out to Allyson, all of her information will be in the description. But until the next episode, I'm giving you the keys. There are no gatekeepers here. Care for yourself, care for your wealth. Your time is worth it. Let's put it. Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Thank you, Lily.
Appreciate all of you. And subscribe to YouTube and mine. Bye. I'll email you, Allyson.
Okay. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you to everyone in the comments. I didn't see any questions. I think we're okay, but thank you.
Yes, but thanks for watching. Thanks for the tech support, and hi, Mom.